this is the result. This is where you will end up, with your family and friends crying as you're let out of the courtroom to serve the rest of your life in prison.
Abel Gallegos. Abel Gallegos appeared in the Jefferson County District Court on Friday, where he received life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. He also got 163 years extra for his role in the kidnapping and killing of a 28-year-old Simone Duran. Gallegos and his team of three, Alonso Quintana and Rene Francisco Rosales, were found guilty of multiple counts for their role in retaliation murder. The victim had made the mistake of identifying Alonso Quintana in a lineup during an attempted murder investigation in Adams County back in early 2018. That is what precisely made her a target. The same year, on November 5th, the trio lured Duran with Gallegos approaching her on her social media, and she was invited to meet at a house in Denver. From there, Gallegos and Rosales kidnapped her, taking her to a parking lot on the west side of Colfax and Kipling. That is when they caught up with Quintana, and Duran knew that it was her doom. Then they drove her to a dark, secluded spot at 7th and Nile and Golden, where Gallegos and Quintana shot her a total of 10 times. Duran begged for her life the entire time, but these three demons were merciless. Rosales came to the scene later with Gallegos to destroy the evidence by pouring gasoline on her remains and burning everything down. The judge was disgusted at the nature of the crime, and he said, "You can't live with us anymore." He was appalled by the casualness of the crime and how much disregard these people had for human life.
Parent, we plan to dance at their wedding, celebrate a promotion, look forward to possible grandchildren. The last thought we would ever have is that we will have to plan their funeral.
Carpio brothers. Anthony and Michael Carpio were two alleged gang members who plead not guilty in a Van Nuys courtroom. They both were under 20, with Anthony being 17 and Michael being 19 at the time. They were both documented to be members of the Rockwood Street Gang and are responsible for the death of Kevin Orellana, who was only 18 at the time. It was a second-degree murder, and they had killed him for absolutely nothing. The brothers approached Orellana, who was a West Valley Occupational Center student, not involved in any sort of gang, and issued a gang challenge. One thing led to another, to an argument, which amplified into a physical fight. Anthony ended up stabbing Orellana, after which they fled the scene in a minivan. Michelle Pineda, 20 at the time, was allegedly in the driver's seat and has been charged with being an accessory after the fact. The three were arrested early the next morning at a Panorama City house. The prosecutors have filed special allegations that the crime was to benefit a criminal street gang. This could add additional penalties for all three involved if they get convicted. Anthony was only 16 at the time of the killing, but he was tried as an adult. Both the brothers face a maximum of life in prison, and the three are booked for a long time. Anthony Carpio was 18 when he was sentenced to 16 years to life, and his brother Michael, who was 20, was sentenced to 15 to life. They sat with no expression in the courtroom, with no sign of remorse at all. In fact, they were seemingly bored during the trial, while Maris read a victim and impact statement prepared by Orellana's family.
These offenders who have been sentenced today will serve their sentences under heightened security and supervision, so as to ensure that they do not perpetrate any criminal activities inside.
George Gewel Thomas. South Africa's biggest gang trials have brought out names from the dark and uncovered a trail of dead bodies, extortions, and an arsenal of weapons. Under the Prevention of Organized Crime Act, 19 members of the country's most vicious gangs, the 28s and 26s, were prosecuted with 167 charges in a marathon trial at the High Court in Cape Town, which ended in 2014. The public gallery was cleared for the testimony of a terrified witness, flanked by a bodyguard. The witness told the court, in which journalists were permitted to remain, that the enterprise had tried 6 times over 2 years to assassinate gangster Curtis Esterhuizen from the rival Clever Kids gang. Thomas was allegedly in the back of a bakkie with a rifle fitted with a telescope sight and silencer, with 2 men who sat in front of him with a box of ammo. Alleged to be the boss of the 28's gang, he was arrested by police on patrol after shooting incident in the Bishop Lavis. Ashraf Arab Riklif, 26's gang leader, and Thomas have often clashed in turf wars. Thomas has been sentenced to life in prison for slayings and a lot of other crimes he orchestrated from prison cell. He's gonna live his life behind bars with 6 other gangsters for crimes which were committed between 2006 and 2010. Slaying, conspiracy to commit slaying, and racketeering. Thomas will serve 7 life sentences, as he showed no remorse for all of his deeds. He carried out out hits to instill fear in the community. It's a great win to have a gang leader behind bars, but then the correctional services officers were shocked at how he managed to turn the prison into his private headquarters, ordering hits from the prison landline. Thomas made over 30,000 calls between 2008 and 2010 while he was waiting for his trial. He was also asking his team to get rid of the witnesses, with several people included state witnesses. The convicted leader even assaulted prison wardens but claimed he only attacked them in retaliation.
But it wasn't until this year an investigator stumbled upon something that may have never been found to try to find the murder weapon in this case, and that's according to testimony heard today.
Victor Rodas, an alleged MS-13 gang member, was convicted of the murder of a Lynchburg teen. Raymond Wood was a 17-year-old who was found in Bedford County in 2017. He was found with 29 stab wounds. Victor was found guilty of his role in the brutal slaying of Raymond Wood, and he's been sentenced to 55 years in jail. The jury passed down 35 years for the slaying, 10 years for abduction, and 10 years for gang participation. The knife used in the attack was presented as evidence during the trial. The 17-inch knife was the weapon Raymond died from. He was stabbed in the neck, torso, and hand. During the investigation, it was revealed that Raymond and Victor knew each other. They uncovered a series of text messages between the murderer and the victim in which they were setting up a fake drug deal. That was the bait for Raymond, and he fell into the trap.
So I decided instead of walking back through the high grass, I would walk straight through the woods to my car.
Victor, together with other co-defendants, were plotting the murder, and the witness justified that the group was laughing and talking about their plan. The defendants abducted Raymond from his home while he was crying for his mother until they strangled him unconscious in the back seat.
Improper storage of a large capacity firearm near my home. Some might posit, some might suggest, Mr. Rios, that it is senseless to order on and after, as we sometimes call it, from and after killing, when the maximum penalty is a penalty of life. And for that purpose, I'm sentencing you as to count 10 to the maximum permissible sentences of 14 to 15 years MCIC at junction to and from and after the sentence to be served on count 1.
Lee Rios. Hampton Superior Court Judge Mark D. Manson sentenced Lee Rios to life in prison without the possibility in parole. The jury found Lee guilty of the first-degree murder under the theories of deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity and cruelty against an 18-year-old Kenneth Lopez on 24th of March 2015. He was sentenced to 14 to 15 years in state prison after the life sentence on the charge of improper storage of a large-capacity firearm. They said the murder was meticulously planned and aggressively pursued. Lee made a calculated decision to bring Lotus from his house by enlisting the help of other Latin King members. Both Lee and Kenneth were Latin King members, but they had a falling out. Lopez's body was found around 11 a.m. on the 25th of March 2015. Jody deliberated for a day before reaching his verdict. Max Bennett read an impact statement from the family members of Lopez. The family wrote, "The death of Kenneth was very unexpected for the whole family. It hit us so hard that we're still in disbelief that he isn't with us. It's been 3 years. 3 long, hard, very sad years knowing Kenneth couldn't even celebrate his 21st birthday, but he passed away to a better life. I want people to understand that killing someone, whether being an adult or child, is wrong. It causes so much pain not only to the victim's family, but to the defendants as well," Lopez's sister wrote. "There is God up there that sees everything, and the time will continue to pass by, but in our hearts, it will remain empty. But God will give us the peace that on March 24th, 2015, a certain individual took away," the family wrote in a statement to the Hampton Superior Court Judge Mark D. Manson.